It's time for the No Nonsense Roundtable. Insights to capture your imagination from people you know and people you'd like to know about. Each week, a different guest from a different walk of life. Now, here is the host of the No Nonsense Roundtable, Dom Geneva.
Well, welcome to another edition of the No Nonsense Roundtable, always here on Saturday, 10 to 11 on News Radio Wham 1180. And the great thing about this show is that sometimes guests beget other guests. So with me today is a former guest who is Jerry Boone, who's a founder of the Sky Coasters, and he, is going to help me with the show, being my guest host, if you would. And we're here with Elvio Fernandes, a singer, songwriter, producer, member of the Platinum Grammy-nominated band Daughtry, and I think probably more important to you, the founder of the Rochester RocStarAcademy, which helps young people get involved in the music business. And I think that at that, my job is pretty well done for the first 9 minutes. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jerry, because you know a lot about Elvio, and you have a lot of questions, and you're far more qualified to talk to somebody about the music business than I am. So thank you for being here, and thank you for doing my job for me.
Tom, thanks so much, and it's great to be here with your listeners. And I really got excited about this because Elvio and I know each other from years, both playing in bands locally here in Rochester. And I just wanted to find out, almost like sitting down with coffee with him, just to talk about what he's been up to, how he got started, and all those kind of things. And so if it's okay with you, I'm going to lead in with some things that I thought that would be interesting for your listeners and for me to find out.
I always let other people who are more qualified for me do my work, especially when I don't have to pay them. So go right.
You guys are a great team. Look it. There's Bernie and Elton. There's John and Paul. And there's Dom and Jerry. It works.
Yeah. Wait a minute, Elvio. Jerry and Dom.
My bad.
Yeah, let's get there.
You know what? I'm going to say a Ronald Reagan line. I paid for this microphone.
Yeah, that's great.
Go ahead.
Well, anyway, my first thing was with Elvio. I'm very proud of what he's done. It's just amazing because I've known him back when he started here locally playing. But I wanted to find out, just as I shared with you when I was on your show, is how did Elvio Fernandes get started in music when he was just a young kid? And I think that's a great place to start. Did you start on piano, guitar? Did your parents encourage you?
So I, my entire family emigrated here from a small island off of the coast of Portugal called Madeira Island. And I've been fortunate to see the world a few times over being in a touring band, and it's still the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And they all came over to the United States because that's where you went for opportunity, right?
Right.
My grandfather was an incredible Portuguese guitar player. It's a very specific guitar. It's like a 12-string guitar. You play with your fingernails. It's the most beautiful sound. And my mom was a singer. And they used to perform what would be the equivalent of our blues. A lot of improvising. She would make up songs and lyrics just about, the hardship of leaving everything she knew to come to this country and all those things. But as a small child, as early as I can remember, they told me I was like 3 years old. My aunt bought one of those little toy pianos, and, I was blessed to have been born with an ear for music. So, the radio would be playing whatever was on the radio. As soon as a song started to stay in my head, I could play it.
Oh, cool.
And my mom was like, whoa, like that's weird. How are you doing that? And it was just, look, some people have that gene where they can look at you and draw a perfect portrait. I don't have that gene, but if I've heard a song, I can play it or come close or figure it out. And ever since I was a little kid, that's kind of what I did. And so my mom would play, my grandfather would play, and then they'd recruit me. They bought me an accordion, because I guess Portuguese music has a lot of accordion in it. The thing was bigger than I was, but wow. I figured out how to play that. And so I was always surrounded by, between my mom and my grandfather and relatives, Portuguese music. And obviously as I got older, I grew up in the 80s. So it was the one-hit wonders of the 80s. It was, the first album I ever bought was Synchronicity from the Police, then Thriller in 1984 from Van Halen. So piano was definitely my first instrument. And then as I got older, I bought my first guitar in college. I went to Geneseo, and I walked over to Buzzo's Music and bought my first Strat, and kind of taught myself how to play a little guitar in college, and yeah, those are my two main instruments, as well as vocals. But
did you take piano lessons or just?
No, I never took lessons in any.
No kidding.
I've done it up to this point by ear, and I've been fortunate that it's worked out. But I wish I did, to be honest with you. And I'm really interested in learning. Styles that I'm not accustomed to playing, like jazz and blues. Like when I hear a blues piano player, like Chuck Leavell, who played with Clapton and the Allman Brothers, like that rock and roll style piano, I love it.
Yeah.
I never have to play that style.
Right.
But
right.
I want to be able to. So, and a lot of that stuff like jazz and blues, like you should know your theory. You should know,
right.
You can't fake jazz. Like that's math.
Right.
Like there's stuff going on there.
Oh, I know.
I grew up playing pop music. I would put on Billy Joel and Elton John records and try to figure out what they were doing.
So you were like home playing along with records
pretty much.
Now tell me about what I remember, which is really cool. So, I've been playing for a long time. Mm-hmm. Elvio and three other guys put together this really popular band that just came out of nowhere. I remember Elvio, I got to tell, we were playing at High Falls for some private fair, and High Falls had another section to it.
Yep.
And there was a band playing there. So I walk over, and it's Uncle Plum.
Wow.
And I go, who's this Uncle Plum? But the people were going nuts. I'm going, this is competition.
Uncle Plum was the name of the band?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And you might as well tell us how did you name that band?
It was not my idea to name it that. Our guitar player at the time, Mike Gladstone, I still to this day don't really know the exact story, but I want to say that his wife had an uncle that they used to call Uncle Plum.
Oh.
And maybe he had just passed, and we were trying to come up with the name of the band, and that name came up, and Mike just said, why don't we just call it Uncle Plum?
Yeah.
And I remember looking at him with a weird look, like, really? And then I was like, whatever, that's fine. And, at the end of the day, does it really matter?
No, it doesn't.
Like, look at some of these names, Bare Naked Ladies.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But these guys, Dom, I got to tell you, these guys just took off in Rochester like you wouldn't believe. And so we would be playing at the East End Fest, for example, thousands of kids. We'd be at one end at RG&E, and they'd be at the other end near Milestones,
yep.
right? And just thousands of people. I remember, so that I could get people down there, I hired those searchlights behind us bouncing off RG&E, so people go, oh, what's going on down there? So I could get some of your people.
Yeah, that's great.
Just to get attention to
I'm
yourself.
a terrible person.
Oh,
it was you.
It was me.
You.
Those are some of my fondest memories as a musician with the East End festivals.
Yeah.
I mean, you felt larger than life. And, I'd be standing on stage looking at a sea of people.
Oh, yeah.
Thousands, 5,000 maybe. I mean, It was insane.
Yep.
What was the first paid gig you got?
Oh, man. The first paid gig I got, I believe, was playing piano at the Brookwood. Is that a place? The Brookwood Inn?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I was like 16 or 17 years old, and I had met a friend of mine, Chad Slayton, who was with Nick and the Nice Guys at the time.
Okay.
Competition.
Yeah, right.
Jerry's look just changed. and Chad had a piano gig there, and he asked me to fill in for him. And I remember being really nervous, and I just sat at the piano and played pop tunes that I grew up,
neat.
and just kind of winged it.
That's
that was my first paying
How much
gig.
money? How much money?
Oh, it was like $100 maybe,
There you go.
but for
That's good.
for a 15 or 16-year-old kid, I was like, yes.
Well, that's got to be the age of a lot of the kids in your academy, right?
Yeah, kids in our academy range from, I've had as young as 8 to 20. There's some kids in there now that are in their 20s, but the average age is probably 15 or 16.
And we're going to be picking up on that right after this.
There's a rain over the horizon. The lunatics have taken the asylum.
So welcome back to the No Nonsense Roundtable. And I'd like to mention today that the bumper music is provided by Mr. Elvio Fernandes, which is the main guest I have here today. And my co-host is Jerry Boone, who's one of the founders of the Sky Coasters and been in the business for quite a long time and quite the expert in music history and the way things work and happen. And you can ask questions that I wouldn't even conceive of. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to you again, sir, and have you go at it. So there you go.
Great. Thanks a lot, Tom. And sort of our extended coffee session here with Elvio. And one of the things I'm interested, so we left it that Uncle Plum is playing locally. It's a huge band in Rochester. And I've always wanted to know the steps that Elvio took in his mind and things that he accomplished to open the door to get into Daughtry. And there's several steps that he was probably willing to take that other people wouldn't take in order to get that greatness. So I'd love you to tell us a little bit about what you were thinking then and how it transformed you.
So when we put Uncle Plum together, the goal was always to, do original music and, make a go of it. The lineup was there. I felt the talent was there. And we were writing some catchy original songs. So we really wanted to try to get signed. So what ended up happening was we did an all original CD. And, locally it did really well. People loved it. A local musician, which I know Mark Provenzano, he had our CD and he sent it to a friend of his named Chris Wood, who was a sound engineer in Los Angeles. And Chris worked for Brian McKnight. Brian McKnight heard the CD and said, I want to meet this kid. Oh. So timing just worked out perfectly because I'm an avid soccer player. And every year we used to go to this tournament in Las Vegas, me and a bunch of guys from Rochester. So we went to this tournament. Well, Brian McKnight wanted to fly me out to Burbank to his studio to talk to me.
Wow.
And it happened to be the same weekend we were going to Vegas. So what I did was basically I flew to Burbank and then went to Vegas and met up with my boys to play soccer. So it was just good timing.
Yeah.
So I ended up walking into Brian McKnight's studio in Burbank, and there was this gentleman singing. Well, gentleman, he's a kid at the time, I guess. He was probably in his early to mid-20s, maybe. I call that a kid. Yeah. So he's in there in the booth singing, and he was really good. I'm like, man, who is this kid? And they're like, his name's Ace Young. I'm like, wow, he's really good. And Ace is a sweetheart of a person, and he and I just hit it off that day. And we ended up staying there and writing a country song with this girl, and we just, kind of formed this friendship. So fast forward, Brian was interested in doing something with me and not the entire band. And that was a conflict for me.
Right.
Because those are my boys, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Nothing ever happened with the Brian McKnight thing. His manager at the time had all these plans, and he would call me and say, hey, I need you to be in New York next weekend, and then nothing would happen. So I just got to the point where I was like, this just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
But Ace and I became good friends. So Ace would come to Rochester. I was living in Greece at the time. I had a studio in my basement, and Ace and I would work on music. Oh. He had a lot of song ideas. I would produce his songs, and I produced his first single, a song called Scattered. And then one day Ace said to me, I think I want to try out for this new show. It's called American Idol. I'm like, dude, what do you got to lose? Do it.
Yeah.
So he ends up auditioning for the show, ends up being an early favorite to win the show. Oh. And I'm like, oh man, this is great. Good job. Paul Abdul picked him as to be the winner.
Oh, wow.
He didn't end up winning, but still.
Yeah.
But him and Chris Daughtry became really good friends on the show.
Oh.
And Ace would play stuff that he and I had been working on to Chris.
No kidding.
So Chris knew of me, knew that I was Ace's buddy in Rochester, and knew that, I had some skills, I guess, because he had heard the stuff we did. So that kind of started like this, back and forth, like texting relationship, and like we knew of each other. It was all cool. And then there was one day where we wrote a song. Me and Ace and my another local friend, Greg Wiktorski, wrote a song. We were like, wow, this sounds like a Daughtry song. We should send it to Chris. Sent it to Chris. Chris was like, man, I just finished my second album. The timing isn't right, but this is good stuff. Again, it started to give, validity, for me,
Yeah.
So then I asked Chris, I said, hey, do you have any song ideas that you are, that you like, but you haven't finished or you need help with or whatever? And he's like, you know what? I do. It's a song called Crazy. I'm going to send it to you. All I have is the chorus. So I took that and finished it, sent it back to him. And fast forward, that song ended up on the third Daughtry album. So, and again, I'm a real estate agent at Remax at the time, playing in Uncle Plum at night, doing solo shows, playing with John Akers, doing a bunch of things. And I get a call from Chris saying that song's going to be on our next record.
Oh my gosh.
So as a songwriter, that's the ultimate goal, is to get a song placed on a major label release, you know?
Yeah.
And to this day, I'll never forget the day when it came. I didn't even know it was coming, but it came in the mail, and it's if my house goes up in flames, I'm running out of the door with this thing. But it's a gold record with my name on it from that song.
Oh, fantastic.
And that really started the working relationship between Chris and I.
So you mentioned the call. I'm a baseball fan. There was something called The Catch that had to do with Willie Mays. Tell me about the call with you. That's an interesting story.
The call. So I was, like I said, I was a real estate agent for Remax, and I was showing a house. It was not a nice house. It was this little, maybe $50,000, $60,000 house in, I think, the 10th Ward. And it was a younger couple, and the phone, we were talking about putting an offer on the house. My phone was sitting on the countertop, and all of a sudden it rang, and it said Chris Daughtry on there. And they're just looking at the phone, and then they look at me, and they're looking at the phone, and they look at me, and they're like, "Are you going to answer that?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm going to answer that." So I answered the phone, and basically he had said, "Look, we'd written this song Crazy. It's on the album. I'm getting ready to go on tour to promote this album, and we're thinking of adding a utility guy. And for those of you that don't know what a utility guy is, basically jack of all trades, master of none. So somebody to play keys, play guitar, sing some background vocals, kind of fill in the gaps. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Man, I'm flattered. Of course I would love to, but I just can't. I have a wife, I have kids, I have a mortgage, car payment, a career here. I can't imagine ever being able to go on the road. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to say no, but thanks for thinking of me." And I went about my business, ended up selling that house and made a commission of, I don't know, $800 or whatever it was. So I went home that night and we were having dinner, and I was talking to my wife, and I said, "Jess, you're never going to believe this. Chris Daughtry called today." She's like, "Really? What did he want?" She's like, "Well, he wanted me to go on tour with him." And I'm waiting for her to be like, "Yeah, right." And she's just like looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and she's like, "Well, what did you say?" I said, "No. How the hell am I going to do that? And we've got, a life here, and I've got a career here, and we got kids and a mortgage and car payment." And she's just looking at me, straight face. And I'm like, "Oh, she's not buying this." She goes, "Let me get this straight. So you've spent your entire life burying yourself in your studio, playing every crap hole in Rochester till 2:00 in the morning to try to get to that next level. You just got, quote, the call, and you said no?" I was like, "Well, yeah." She's like, "Call his ass back and tell him you're going, because we will figure this out. We have family here. We have my family, your family. We'll figure this out."
And how your life changed, right?
Yes. And here we are 10 years later.
By having the support of a good woman.
Absolutely. I say it all the time. She is the rock star of the family, not me.
God bless you. So we're about ready to head into the news break, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about your program for youngsters when we get back. Welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. Thank you for listening. And if you want to listen to any past shows, they are always on NoNonsenseRoundtable.com, where you can download the YouTube of the show, commercial free, and listen to it at your pleasure. One thing I like to do at the bottom of the hour, as everybody knows, is give a thank you to the Bob Johnson Auto Group, who sponsors the show. And if you're looking to buy a car or truck or get one fixed, great people to deal with, and I thank them dearly. We are talking today to Elvio Fernandes, who is a singer, songwriter, producer, very accomplished fellow in the music business. And my guest host today is Jerry Boone, a founder of the Sky Coasters. And Jerry, you had some questions that wouldn't be in my purview to ask somebody, because you were talking about touring and the different things you wanted to ask Elvio. So go right ahead.
Great, thanks. So we left with the call where Elvio is now excited about joining Daughtry, and I wanted to hear a little bit about what it's like playing with a band like that on the road in front of thousands and thousands of people, not only nationally but internationally. And then I also want to ask them, when you tour, people wonder how are they getting from place to place, which is on a tour bus, and it's always exciting to hear about what's it like going from here to there and on a bus and so forth. So Elvio, I'm just going to open it up to you to tell us all you can about what it's like on the road and how it feels to be in front of thousands of people who are paying tickets to see you.
It's an incredible feeling. And anytime you create anything, a piece of art or song or whatever that resonates with thousands and thousands of people around the world, I mean, it's a gift. When they're singing your words back to you as a musician, as a songwriter, there is no better feeling.
Yeah.
And then you get the emails and the messages and the texts, or not the text, but the messages on social media or the emails saying, hey, just so you know, your song Witness changed my life. I was in a dark place and that song helped me out of it. Like that. Are you kidding? Like, that's a gift.
That's awesome.
But when I joined the band, it was, it was guns a-blazing right out of the gate. So we joined the band and we start going on tour, and it was a European tour. And right before the European tour, we had a bunch of TV performances to do to promote our current single at the time. And one of those TV performances was American Idol.
Aha.
So we went on American Idol, and this is when Steven Tyler, Randy Jackson, Jennifer Lopez, Keith Urban were the judges.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Awesome.
So we are in LA. We go to the studios, and we're sitting there waiting around, and and it was funny because Chris goes, "Hey, do you want to go say hi to Randy?" I'm like, "Sure." So me and Chris walk down the hall, and Randy Jackson walks up and does exactly what Randy Jackson always does. Yo, dog, what's up, CD? And they start, talking to each other, and he introduces me, and everything was cool. And, I'm trying to keep my cool because you don't want to be that wide-eyed, like, oh my God, you're Randy Jackson. It's like, you have to learn quickly that these are normal people, right? Uh-huh. So then Randy goes, hey, let's go say hi to Steven. And at the time, I didn't put two and two together that Steven meant Steven Tyler.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, no way. So we start walking, and behind the American Idol studios, each judge has their own, like, it's almost like a double wide, like a trailer, basically. So we walk into this trailer, and it's just these exotic rugs and mannequins everywhere. And I'm like, this is weird. All of a sudden, Steven Tyler walks out. Hey, guys, this and that. And I was like, holy cow. And Chris introduces me, and Steven's like, what are you guys doing? You guys want to hear the new Aerosmith record we're working on? And I was like, oh my man. Lord. So we were like, yeah. So we proceeded to spend the next hour in Steven Tyler's trailer listening to the new Aerosmith record. And Steven's comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, you sing all the harmonies, right? Check this out. And he puts his arm around me, and he's singing these harmonies to these new songs. And I'm just looking at Chris going, really? Last week I was playing at Spender's on Lyle Avenue, and now I got Steven Tyler with his arm around me singing harmonies. Like, this can't be happening. And then not long after that, Jimmy Iovine, Lana Del Rey, and Rick Nielsen all came in to say hi to Steven. So, we met them, and it was really cool. So, those are the pinch me moments. Being in the music industry, you get to meet so many crazy people that you idolized, and, bands that you grew up listening to or bands that you liked are now on the same bill or even opening for you at times, which is weird, like certain songs that we used to cover in Uncle Plum, these bands were opening for us. I was like, this is so odd, but it was great. I got to, like I said, I got to see Europe and played in Olympic Stadium in Munich and played in Wembley Arena and played in all these great places. And so, one of your questions was, how do we get around?
Yeah.
Okay. Tour bus becomes our home. Okay. Now, are there times where you take flights and in the beginning, especially if you had to try to cram in a couple shows in a short period of time, there would be private jets and things like that, which I do not like. Those make me nervous every time because usually when there's a tragedy, it's a private jet or a small plane. But anyways, it's a tour bus. And the tour bus is set up like a little house, like we have our bunks where we sleep. There's a family room with a TV and whatever you want. There's a kitchen. It's always stocked with what you want. And that becomes your home.
So there's two questions I have here. The first question is mannequins.
Yeah, I know. I don't get it. Maybe
Do you have
maybe it was-
any idea why the mannequins and
who knows? It's Steven Tyler. He's crazy. Like I have no idea. Maybe
Wow.
they.
Oh,
Who knows?
okay.
I really don't know.
And I mean, it's got to be hard to be cool in front of somebody's like rock and roll legends like Steve Tyler, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, but you
royalty.
like I
really,
said,
But-
you're absolutely right.
But you got to act cool even if you don't feel cool.
You do,
Yeah.
and you quickly realize that he's just a musician like I am, and
Yeah.
he had breaks, and his songs did really well and catapulted him to where he is. But at the end of the day, he's a human being that plays music for a living, and once you realize that, it's like.
Is that the one thing that surprised you the most when you were doing your tours? Is that other musicians were just regular people?
Yeah. I mean, so one of my favorite stories is I got to spend an entire day at a family barbecue with Stevie Wonder.
Wow.
Now, you want to talk about royalty,
Yeah.
right? So, but he walked into the place and starts cracking jokes right out of the gate, telling his son-in-law, he's like, "Man, you look terrible." And he's like, "How do you know?" Just self-deprecating humor, and he was just a normal guy and funny and cool and talking about sports. And the last thing you want to do is interview these people when you meet them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
of course I want to be like, "Oh my God, tell me about Songs in the Key of Life.
Yeah.
Tell me about all the," no, let's talk. Did you watch a game? Oh, who do you want to win? Yeah. Like be a normal dude.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's probably one of the, if there's a lesson to be learned for people who aren't musicians, because you always hear stories about, "Oh, I met so-and-so. He was such a jerk," Well, hold on. Is there a backstory? Was he eating dinner with his family and you walked up to his table and asked for an autograph? Like, folks, rule number one, if you see somebody famous having dinner or eating lunch, leave them alone and wait till they're done. Mm-hmm. Because what ends up happening is you go to the table, you ask for a photo, and I try to be a nice guy, so I take that photo, and then everybody else in the restaurant looks over and says, "Something's going on over there," and now there's a line of people. And you know what I mean? So it's like you have to just common sense, and you don't know. Everybody has a bad day. You could have had a horrible morning. You want somebody's autograph. They can't. They're late to an appointment. They leave. Now all of a sudden that guy's a jerk, and you tell your friends he's a jerk, and then those friends tell their friends he's a jerk, and now he's a jerk. He's not a jerk.
Yeah.
He had things to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just not. It's a tough. It's tough to live up to the expectations of people. So.
Yeah, people are people, and they have to have their own lives. So when we get back, we're going to talk about something that's very important to you. That's your academy and how you're helping young people. And, it's going to be right after this. Well, welcome back to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here with Jerry Boone, founder of the Sky Coasters, and Elvio Fernandes, singer, songwriter, producer, and founder of the Rochester Rock Academy, right?
RocStarAcademy.
RocStarAcademy. So tell me all about that, because that's a very worthwhile organization that you started, and probably as important or more important than anything else that you've been talking about today, I would think.
Aside from my marriage and being a father, it's the most important thing I do.
There you go.
For sure.
Well, tell us about it.
Basically what it is it's a music academy, a year-long music academy, kind of modeled after travel sports. And what we do is we take musicians, we form bands, we assign a professional coach to each band, and then the band starts working on their set list. And we also have solo artists that don't want to be in a band. They just want to be a singer-songwriter. They also get coaching. We have kids that take lessons. We have a recording studio, kids that are learning how to produce music. 'Cause there's some kids that just want to do the engineering part of it. But at the end of the day, the main focus of our academy is the performance, and that's the formation of the bands and the solo artists. And we've got 12 bands right now, and a bunch of solo artists. And what they do is they rehearse weekly for 90 minutes with their pro coach. They work on their set list, and then I book shows for them throughout the year.
Wow.
And in a typical year, I mean, we'll probably play at least one show a month at various, Lilac Festival, Iron Smoke, Love and Cup, Hilton Carnival, Lincoln Hill Farms, these great venues.
Yeah, and what are the ages primarily?
They range from 8 to, I still have kids that are in the program in their early 20s that started with me when they were like 12, 13 years old. One of the bands that we have, probably our most successful band, is a band called BB Dang, who coincidentally is playing with Jerry's band. Is it March
11th?
March 11th at Nashville's. That's awesome. Yeah. So BB Dang was the very first band that I ever had. And the Academy grew from there, but BB Dang has now grown into a viable, very hard-working band, and they probably play a couple shows a month throughout the year on their own, and they're doing really, really well. So for me, it's a joy, Well,
one of the things I hear in what you're saying is that you're not only coaching them with their music abilities, but you're setting up venues for them to play in, which is really kind of cool. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, where it's just not that they're taking music lessons.
Exactly. The essence of this whole program is to give as many kids as I can possibly reach that feeling that I get when I go on stage, which is feeling like a rock star and feeling like you're cool, right?
Right.
And the more kids that I feel we can give that to, the better. So at the end of the day, it's just, like I said, you have kids that play sports. What is the likelihood that those kids are going to go pro? Probably not likely. However, there are life lessons to be learned from being a part of a team. So the kids that we get, they're not the quarterback of the football team. They're not the shortstop of the baseball team. These are artistic kids that spend a lot of time maybe feeling like they're not cool, and spending time in their bedrooms by themselves, playing their instrument, taking lessons and going home and never getting that thrill of being on stage and being adored, right? So that's my whole focus with this academy is we put these bands together and, we take kids from all different walks of life, put them together, they learn songs. Next thing you know, you've got grown parents, men, women, adults in the audience in tears because their kid that they were worried about that didn't have many friends is now standing at the front of the stage. I get emotional talking about it every single time. Standing in front of the stage with his favorite rock t-shirt on, playing a guitar solo, and 300, 400, 500 people cheering for that kid.
Right.
Now, you tell me, is there a better gift in life than to be able to give that kid that?
Right. And so they're getting validation from an outside source, which is the audience and the coaching that you're giving them.
Yep. And my speech to parents is the same every single time. And before we do shows, let's say we're doing a show at Love and Cup, I will address the audience before the show. And I always say the same thing. I say, listen, folks, there's going to be moments tonight where you're like, holy cow, these kids are unbelievable. And they are. There's going to be some moments where you're like, they're kids, right?
Right.
But your job is to make every kid on this stage tonight feel like a rock star. Regardless of what it sounds like, regardless of whatever, you cheer for these kids. Because if they leave my program someday with an ounce more confidence than they came with, then I did my job. And that's what we're doing.
Now, the bands, are they different types of music, or is it all the same, or is it all rock?
Yeah, it's different. It's mostly rock. You've got classic rock, pop rock, alternative. We don't really have any country bands. We have some bands that do some country tunes, but I would say it's mostly rock and roll. Yeah.
Without mentioning names, there has to be one or two kids that really stand out with you.
Oh my gosh, one or two. There's kids that inspire me every day. They're incredible, and they just keep getting better and better. And with the advent of social media and YouTube, you can go and learn how to play an instrument, and it's incredible how much information there is out there. We didn't have that when we were kids.
Right.
You put on your album or CD and you just kind of played along. Now you've got these YouTube stars and videos that are showing you exactly what to do, and just the bar keeps getting raised.
Right. And you made a point before that reading music really wasn't that important to you, that you started playing music. So that has to be part of your program, is that you're teaching kids how to play no matter how they have to play.
Yep.
Right?
And I get that's a very common question. Parents will send me an email. My kid is, and I feel like, our academy the niche has become kids who are really serious about music and want to play out and want to get out there and play on stage in venues. So those are the kids we get. And a lot of questions I get from parents are, does my kid need to be able to read music? And I said, no, we're not going to make them read sheet music. We're going to have them learn whatever way we can get from point A to point B. That's how we're going to do it. If it's listening to the song, if it's me physically showing you where to put your hands, The goal is not to make an incredible musician. The goal is to get the band as a team to work together, get through a song, and feel that adoration that will change your life forever. That's as simple as it gets.
So how do
If you want to learn how to read music, there's a place, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, it's called Eastman School of Music. They'll teach you how to do that. Or Hochstein. Like, that's great. And if there's kids who want to learn, we have music theory classes because kids are interested in that. They go to my music theory coach and he teaches them that. But as far as the bands and the solo artists, get on stage, play some rock and roll, express yourself, and walk away feeling like $1 million.
So how do people get in touch with you?
Go to our website. It's www.RocStarAcademy. It's RocStarAcademy.com. And all the information's there. And if you've got a child that loves music and wants to be in a band, hit us up. I promise you, they will enjoy it.
Is it a seasonal thing? You have certain
ongoing.
classes? It's just ongoing.
It's ongoing.
So,
I don't. Nobody signs any contracts. It's literally, I shake your hand, and kids usually don't leave until they go to college. And when they come back from college, a lot of them are working for me and coaching for me.
That's really
so it
cool.
becomes a family. Yeah.
How many kids you say you have right now?
We've got about 120 kids.
Wow.
110, 120 kids, something. I don't even count. I'm a terrible, like, when it comes to like business and analytics, I just listen, let's just do this. I'll count later, I guess. I have no idea.
Well, Jerry, I'll let you ask the last question. What do you got?
Well, I just am so proud of what he's done, making that change. And I did have a question. The people you've met on the road, if you
Sure.
could drop, I know you had mentioned Steven Tyler and so forth, but just drop a few other names.
Oh, man. I've met Steven Tyler, Stevie Wonder, Keith Urban, Dave Grohl, and then some odd ones like Liam Neeson, Ryan Reynolds, Ron Jeremy. I met the guy that killed Bin Laden. I mean, there's just from all different walks of life, right?
Yeah. And all from the telephone call. If you didn't say yes,
if it wasn't for my wife.
And there's a life lesson right there, right?
Yep.
You just never know.
Listen, I wrote a country song that I love. I wrote it with Chris, and the hook was based on my wife. And the hook is, if my life is a movie, you're the star.
And with that, we're going to end the show because we've run out of time. But what a wonderful thought that is.
Because I don't know how to shut up. That's the problem.
Well, Elvio, thank you ever so much. Jerry, thank you for the help. Every Saturday, 10 to 11 on News Radio Wham! 1180. It's the No Nonsense Roundtable. Thank you for listening.